We are counting down the 8 best matches in the career of Rey Mysterio on our way to Sound Off episode 619 later this month. Last week, I talked about Psychosis as one of Rey's all-time great opponents and a man he had maybe more matches with. I don't know about anyone else, but those two had a lot of matches together. They had a lot of battles together very early on in their career. Another one of Rey's greatest opponents was Juventud Guerrera. I'm sure a lot of you remember their matches together in WCW, and even before WCW, there was ECW. There was ECW's Big Ass Extreme Bash in 1996. Rey and Juvi had back-to-back 2 out of 3 Falls matches on back-to-back nights. The first night being in Queens, New York, at the Lost Battalion Hall, March 8th, 1996. A match that Guerrera won 2 falls to 1. I want to read to you from The Observer at the time about this show, night 1 of the Big Ass Extreme Bash, which doesn't sound like it went all too well. The show in Queens was a study of everything that can go wrong with the idea of presenting a hard-edge, ultra-violent concept on television that encourages fan participation. The next night, the show was an example of nearly everything positive about that very same concept. The wrestlers were the same, the angles were similar, the quality of the matches, while overall better in Philadelphia, weren't all that different. The biggest difference was the crowd. The Big Ass Bash in New York was a depressing night, among the most depressing nights that I've ever spent watching pro wrestling. The creation of the Mad Scientist, combined with numerous other forces such as freezing weather, bad sight lines, and just living in New York, led to an audience with no respect for the incredible amount of work that he and his company put into the show. It was an audience that was the reality of the worst John McCain fantasy about what violence and UFC are supposed to be about. At a team meeting the next night, Paul Heyman said that the show sucked and took the blame himself, saying he tried to give people something they did not want to see, and the next time he would give them what they came for. However, for a group whose logo is its initials wrapped in bloody barbed wire, a group that regularly uses props like a baseball bat wrapped in barbed wire and whose fans have been encouraged to hand wrestlers everything, including the kitchen sink. There were items as bizarre as hockey sticks, confiscated from fans as they entered the building. Running a show in front of a strict commission with a self-imposed blood ban, it's going to be very hard to give that audience what it came to see. The reaction while Rey Mysterio Jr. and Juventud Guerrera were putting on one of the best technical matches in the history of the city, and maybe the entire country, was that they wanted the midgets out of there because they figured out they weren't going to bleed. That was not the case the next night in Philly, which brings us to number 6 in our countdown. Rey Mysterio Jr. against Juventud Guerrera, 2 out of 3 falls from night 2 of the Big Ass Extreme Bash from the ECW Arena on March 9th, 1996. This aired on ECW Hardcore Television on March 19th, for those of you who want to go watch it on the network. You can also find it on Mysterio's The Life of a Masked Man DVD that WWE put out many years ago, where they actually list this match as having taken place at the Extreme Bash. So I guess no big asses here. Here, Mysterio was looking to avenge his loss to Juvi the night before. You know, these old ECW shows on the network are nearly unwatchable because of all the music dubs. I'm not talking about this episode, I'm just saying in general, but to not watch them, if that's the only thing holding you back from going back and watching them, to not watch them means that you're missing out on some classics. And this was one of them. This show actually had Mick Foley's final ECW match as Cactus Jack before debuting on Raw as Mankind just a few weeks later. And I believe that this ended up being the final ECW match for both Rey Mysterio and Juventud Guerrera, both of whom ended up going to WCW a few months later. So this was kind of an important show. I just think that this is an excellent match in front of the perfect crowd. Whatever happened in New York the night before, and based on what Meltzer is saying there, apparently it was just a total disaster, and even Paul Heyman thought the show sucked. I cannot say the same about this show. This was the perfect match in front of the perfect crowd. Juventud wins the first fall with a dragon suplex, Second fall now. Rey comes off the top rope, takes Juvi off the apron, down to the concrete floor with a Hurricane Rana. Same move he used on Psychosis during their Bash at the Beach match that I had last week in number 7. And that looked cleaner than this did, but I assume that, the floor here was completely exposed. I don't think there were any mats on the floor at all. So this guy is being taken off the apron down to the concrete. There's less real estate between the ring and the metal barricade than they had, with Rey and Psychosis in WCW. So, Juventud kind of braced himself, and that's completely understandable. But Rey hits the same move. And Guerrera's down, Rey's back in the ring. Referee is poking his head through the ropes, looking down at Juventud, just trying to check on him, make sure he's okay. Rey says, the hell with this. He hits the ropes. He vaults over John Finnegan. He vaults over the referee and out onto Guerrera on the floor. Back inside, Rey hits a lion salt for a near fall. Finally hits a doctor bomb, or a gut wrench power bomb, to even the match at 1 fall apiece. Surprise, surprise. 2 out of 3 falls match is going to a third fall. Third fall gets even crazier. Juventud knocks Rey into the first row. Climbs up onto the ring apron, hits a springboard moonsault onto Mysterio in the crowd. They bring it back into the ring before going back outside. And I'm watching this, and all of a sudden this guy stands up from his seat, and he hands Rey a chair, and I'm looking, and it's Straw Hat Guy. There were a lot of fans at ECW who actually became sort of gimmicks unto themselves. They became almost like superstars in their own right. Straw Hat Guy, he was a cool guy. It takes some balls to walk around wearing that hat and that shirt, let alone wearing that to the ECW arena. So Straw Hat Guy stands up, and he hands Rey Mysterio a chair, which he uses to bash Juvi in the head. Now they're brawling through the crowd. We can't see them. They've got a camera now following them right out of the building and out onto the street. Joey Styles says, they're on the corner of Swanson and Rittner. And these guys are outside, and they're beating the hell out of each other, and Juvi power bombs Rey on top of the hood of a parked car. I hope that's not Howard Finkel's car. We'll see how many of you get that reference. Guerrera goes to grab him. Rey kicks him away, and Rey stands up on the hood of the car and hits a leaping Hurricane Rana. Takes Guerrera down onto the concrete. They come back inside the building. Rey wraps a chair around this guy's head. Fans start chanting, "We want tables." Now, the table has been the most consistently over performer in wrestling for 20 plus years. Thousands of bumps this table has taken. There is a table there. I think it was the Timekeeper's table. It's like a long wooden table. Rey puts it in position, gets back into the ring. Guerrera gets him up on the top rope in position for a Splash Mountain. And Rey reverses it into a Frankensteiner on the way down for the win. That's the same finish that Rey and Psychosis would use a few months later in their Bash at the Beach match. It's a very cool finish. So Rey wins, but he's not done yet. The great babyface that he is, he's not done kicking Juventud's ass. He takes him out to the floor, they get up on the table, and Rey powerbombs Juvi through the table that he had set up a couple of minutes earlier, but did not have the chance to use until now. See, he's a man of the people. He wanted to make sure that he gave the people that table bump that they wanted. And he did. So I thought it was just a fun 2 out of 3 falls affair that got crazier as it went on. A very memorable match. And after this, they would be on their way to WCW. And Rey would go on to become a World Heavyweight Champion in WWE, while Juventud would go on to become part of the Mexicools in WWE and ride a lawnmower to the ring. The tale of 2 careers.